Amid a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, Gazans say they're still struggling to rebuild their lives. Many returning then to their devastated neighbourhoods, which are now moulds of rubble and shattered buildings. While humanitarian agencies say the basic necessities remain out of reach, with far too little aid reaching Gaza nearly 4 weeks after a ceasefire. Hunger persists with winter fast approaching. We can cross live to France 24's Noga Tarnopolsky, who's been to Gaza. She was embedded with the Israeli army. Noga, if you will, talk us through what you saw, what you had access to for the time that you were embedded with the IDF.
I will. Thank you very much, Rochelle. Along with a small group of other foreign journalists, France 24 was invited today into Gaza. It's the first time in a very long time, in almost the entire duration of this war, that foreign journalists have been allowed any access to Gaza. And I want to describe it carefully because it really does show how impossible it is for those of us covering Gaza from outside Gaza, how impossible it is for us to do. We gathered at a small military base just at the border, actually a base at the community of Nahal Oz, one of the communities that was really devastated, decimated, that lost a fourth of its population in the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023. We gathered there, flak jackets, helmets. We were piled into a military truck, not armored, no, just with a tarp on top. And driven a few minutes, in my estimation, less than 5 minutes, into a military base just inside Gaza. It is in the area of Sujaiya. We were able to see the outskirts of Gaza City, or what's left of it. Basically, wasteland, gray, broken structures, the remnants of, what used to be a very intensely urbanized area after what looks like a carpet bombing when you stand there. I want to emphasize this because we came to the base where the soldiers who are located there were wearing t-shirts, not flak jackets, not helmets. It's unclear to me whether these requirements were made sort of to put on a pantomime of allowing us journalists to cover Gaza. We were not able to see a single Palestinian from where we stood on a kind of sand dune at the outskirts of this very small military base. We couldn't see a living soul. The only two living things I was able to see inside Gaza were 2 trees that somehow survived the bombings, and there is a line of buildings. They're basically 2 standing, semi-standing buildings surrounded by rubble, and these form, incredibly enough, what is called the yellow line. In other words, this line defined in the Trump ceasefire agreement as the line between the perimeter of Gaza, the area that the Israel Defense Forces controls, and the internal part of Gaza, where the population, most of the population remains, and that is still weeks into this ceasefire under the control of the, as I'm quoting now the Israeli army spokesman, the jihadist terror group Hamas. There's no pretense even that Hamas has been defeated or eliminated, as both President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu have promised, and we could really not see anything except for this rubble and this wreckage all around us. We stayed about 2 hours from entrance into Gaza to exit from Gaza, about 2 hours, and it is very difficult to report on what happened. I want to give you one last example. Upon exiting Gaza, we found out that 2 people who the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, referred to as 2 terrorists, were shot and killed, I'm quoting now, while crossing this yellow line. Now, the yellow line, as defined in these agreements, is not visible to the human eye. The Israeli soldiers and the spokesman who showed us this line just pointed to the 2 remaining buildings and said the yellow line is there, somewhere there. I can't imagine that for any Gazan civilians, and even for any armed terrorists in Gaza, it is possible to know exactly when they're crossing this line. And I mention this because more than 200 Gazans have been killed in IDF fire since this ceasefire came into effect. And one of the things that really was impressed upon me, at least today in this experience, is that it's not possible. There's no yellow line drawn anywhere. There are no big there's no big structure indicating it. I can't imagine that people wandering in the vicinity of this perimeter line really can know when they're in danger of life and limb and when they're not.